Welcome back to my Colorado Mountain Garden and Homestead. And I wanted to talk today a bit about wildflower seeds, what has worked for me, what hasn't, why people typically have problems with their wildflower seeds. And I'll probably miss something. So if you have questions, please ask. And you can either go over to my Facebook page and message me, and I always put a link down below the videos of that, or you can ask right under here. So, what's in this little dish here is 1 tablespoon of wildflower seeds. Now, these ones I know I got from American Meadow. And a lot of times I don't buy from them because they're a little bit more expensive than Outside Pride. But American Meadow does put lupines in their mix, their wildflower mix. And I love lupines. And once they take hold, they reseed themselves really well. You usually don't get flowers the first year, but the second year, and then they reseed themselves and you'll see them popping up everywhere. I do have dogs. My dogs, your dog could be different than mine, but mine don't eat the flower, and they typically don't eat my wildflowers. At most, they trample them because most of my wildflowers are around my pond. Now, I live at 8,800 feet. Before that, I lived at 9,800 feet. The higher you go, I have found the deeper the good soil needs to be in order to keep them going, keep them coming back, and things like that. Around my pond, it's all decomposed granite. And before, when we were building the pond, it was just basically a big pile of decomposed granite. It looked more like gravel that they probably pulled out when they built the house and the foundation and everything like that. So we did dig down to make our homemade pond and waterfall. And I put soil down, pretty decent soil at the time, and raked it in. And first year wasn't so great. So pretty much every year after that, for about 3 years, I reseeded fairly heavily. Now, I've been at this house for 20 years, or actually 22 years. So my wildflowers around the pond are pretty well established now. But, with, if you want to call it climate change or whatever, some years we have really good years and they just go gangbusters because we get a lot of moisture. Other years, it's more drought, so I don't get as many. It's been pretty dry the last couple years. So this year I will be putting some more seeds down. Now, I've had people say, I put wildflowers down, they did great, but then they didn't come back. I've had people put wildflowers down and say they didn't even grow. And I'm just going to tell you, if you're going to grow up here, unless I'm going to say 7,000 and below, you really, really, really need to treat these seeds and any of the wildflowers that come up like they're little plants, meaning they need to have moisture for a good 2 years. Consistent moisture. You are going to want to, if you didn't fill in with soil and you're just using decomposed granite and throwing some soil, you want at least 1 to 2 inches of good soil on top. Then you can use a rake, sprinkle your seeds around, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And cover them, keep them wet. Don't start this until June. especially if it's a new bed. If it's an established bed, you can usually get away with starting it towards the end of late May, but we still get freezes and everything like that. And if those little seedlings, if they're not from your flowers that you planted before reseeding themselves, start growing. Even though if we get a snow, but if we get a heavy frost, and a lot of times this time of year, especially up here in the mountains, we'll get a frost, heavy frost with no snow, nothing to help insulate those. So if they were a 1/4 inch tall and we get a big freeze, they're going to die. So what I have started doing is either making wildflower carpet, and I'm not going to show you how to do that now. There's a bunch of videos online. I use a coco coir mat when I do that. But before I made that, I started making what I call almost like a seed plug. And I use solo cups for that. And the reason for that is I start them early, start hardening them off, and then I will dig a hole. And most times in the red solo cups, I'll divide in half after they have really good roots. And then I will make sure that there's at least an inch space all the way around that half a cup and an inch space of new soil below it. I don't even plant these until I know I can give them water every day. Now around my pond, I have a mister system to mist all the wildflowers. I don't have drippers in there or anything like that. It's just, there's really no way to do the drippers because some plants need more than others. So a mister works. Now, if we're getting a lot of rain, then I don't have to run it. If we're getting some rain, but we're going to go 4 or 5 days, I might have to run it. During the heat of the summer, especially if I'm just putting down new seeds, and let's say I didn't have an established bed, I may have to turn that mister on twice a day. One being a little more early in the morning. And my mister goes off for that whole area around there for about 15 minutes. And then I do 15 minutes at night. It's after the sun's down low enough because then it shades, my house shades that area. So I put them on so it has time to soak in before the next morning and everything like that. And the reason why I wanted to show you how much this is, I don't even know how much this weighs because it's going to be dependent on how many lighter seeds, but I'm going to hold this up. You can see some of those seeds are really, really tiny. Some of them aren't. Again, I use American Meadows and Outside Pride. Outside Pride by far beats American Meadows as far as prices. So you may want to start out with them, but if you do want the lupines, then maybe seed with them the next year so you can start getting the lupines in, or vice versa. When I buy my seeds, I used to have a dollar store in Evergreen. I would buy them like 10 pounds at a time and repackage them. I still buy typically 5 pounds at a time, and that goes, usually that'll last unless I'm doing a brand new area and I really need to heavily seed. That's going to last me another 4 years. And I put it in Ziplocs at first, but then every year I use my vacuum sealer and I vacuum seal up the seeds. They go in a dark closet that is fairly cool, and I have never had problems with germination. On both those websites, they kind of tell you how many square feet you will get for this the poundage of seeds that you buy. I don't buy the little tiny packets. I don't recommend anybody buying those little tiny packets at Home Depots and things like that because they're a ripoff, unless you're just going to make a pot. So this, and I want you to keep this in mind. This is about a tablespoon. So when I make my plugs in my cups, what I do, and I just start out with my regular potting soil mix, which is potting soil, compost, and worm castings. I fill it up. Oh, you can see how far it is from the top of the solo cup. And then I put my seeds in. And yes, I overseed. Every animal imaginable eats wildflowers. Deer, elk. The birds will come in if your seeds are on the top, or if they even see one on the top, then they'll start picking through it. So with every seed that they eat, which they would rather have than a sunflower seed because they're natural, and I don't feed the birds during the spring and summer because the bear's out. Mice will eat the seeds. Mice will eat the new sprouts. Mice will eat the flowers. Same with rabbits. Rabbits don't really eat the seeds, but they'll eat the new shoots. And you have to realize that the mountain wildflowers are probably going to be the first things that start popping through, besides a bulb or a dandelion or whatever. But dandelions are mountain wildflowers too. And I leave them because I have bees. And that's the first pollen and nectar they typically get because dandelions usually will flower first. So what I did in here is that I filled up with my potting soil. I made sure I didn't have any air pockets in. And then I made sure that this water was soaked really well. This is a little under a half, and you can see my cups dripping. A little under a half of a teaspoon on top. Now I'm going to let these grow. And again, it's only April something right now. It's not even tax day. So I'm going to let them grow. And then these roots are going to get really long. So then it'll be really easy to split them come June when I have where I'm going to put them in plugs. Now, the ones that I'm making today are going to go in pots. The pots they're not huge. And I usually have to replant them or protect them by putting soil or something around the pot and putting it somewhere where it'll stay moist so it gets the winter snows and things like that. But the smaller pots will freeze. Now, a pot that's about 10 gallons or more, usually a lot of the things still come up. Now, this mix does have poppies in it. And poppies at my altitude, 8,800 feet, don't do well. Sometimes I see them, but they rarely come back. Columbines will grow. They may not flower the first season. If they do, it's going to be really late. Like you'll get columbine blooms in September, and that's fine. So what I'm going to do on top of this, after I put the seed down, I sprayed them with just a little spray bottle here, just to wet them down. And then I'm taking some of my potting mix, and I made sure there wasn't any big things in it. And I am just going to sprinkle this over the top. And it's going to get under half, but over a quarter. And if I find a big type seed or something in there, I know you can't see me because my hand's in the way. Let me try and get that. And now this layer, I'm not going to pack down a lot. I'm just trying to cover those seeds. So like that. Then I come back with my little spray bottle and I spray them. And I give them a good spray. And this basically is going to hold those seeds kind of in place. If you use like a watering pitcher or something like that, then typically what's going to happen is all the middle seeds are going to move to the outside. So that's why I prefer to give them a good spritz with the bottle. And what I sprayed on here is probably less than a tablespoon. These I'm going to put in front of my window that I have in front. It's the west facing window. And give me a quick second. I lost one of my props. What I will do next is, and I like to keep the soil down a bit from the edge because as these come up, they can kind of sway from side to side or lean. So I give them some space. I'm going to cover this with saran wrap. And as you know, saran wrap doesn't stick real well to plastic. So I'm going to put a rubber band right around the edge. Keep in mind this would have plastic wrap over the top. And then I'm just going to put it over there by my marigolds and in front of that window as soon as they start sprouting. And I don't mean just one. Now, if anything ever hits the plastic, I'll take the plastic off as soon as the first one hits the top. But a lot of these will start sprouting and you'll get some little ones. And I still like to keep the humidity in. Sometimes if I can get the plastic wrap tight enough, I'll go in with like a toothpick and prick the top of it so that some of the humidity can come out. But that window doesn't get a lot of sun in the morning. It's mostly in the afternoon. Then I will, after I put the plastic over, I put the rubber band around, and that's where they'll sit. And I will keep watering from the bottom now until they start sprouting. If for some reason the inside top part looks like it's drying out, I just use my little squirt bottle here. As these get bigger and it warms up outside, I'll start hardening them off, but then I just keep them in front of that window until June. And usually sometime in May, the soil for me has warmed up enough and I've been able to get enough water on it where I can start digging my holes. And don't be afraid. If you want to plant the whole cup like this and not split it, get yourself an empty cup, go out, dig your hole, put your extra soil in, put the cup in there so that when you're ready to plant this, all you have to do is pop it out. A lot of people think that it's drastic about how many seeds I use to do this. And you can do this on a big basis. If you wanted to make a huge container and you have the ability to dig down deep, or let's say your plant beds that you're putting your wildflowers in is all good soil, it's loose, it's not the decomposed granite. Yes, you can make a huge plant and cut it into many pieces and just plop them around. But again, keep in mind, most of us have deer here. We don't have an outside fence. We have an electric fence for the dogs plus a small yard. But the only way I can keep the deer out of here is if I run out and yell at them. And or the elk. And I don't typically see mice during the day, but they're probably out around my pond at night when I'm asleep. So the bigger the plants get, then the mice don't chew on them as much. But if you have rabbits, rabbits will come out. Chipmunks and ground squirrels, excuse me, I have allergies, are usually only out during the day, so I don't worry about them at night. But That's why I overseed. Give me a second here. I'm going to take a drink of water. That's why I overseed. Because everything eats them. And like I said, when I was first buying the 5 pounds at a time, they were only about $70 for 5 pounds. Now it's over $100. So you kind of have to do what your budget allows. The larger quantity you get, the better price. I will come back probably in a few days and make another video once these start popping up. If I don't get a video made, it will be on my Facebook page. And tomorrow I'll probably be making a video. It'll be late in the day of my marigolds. I have germination, so hopefully I'll have a good picture for you. Hope you're having a wonderful day and happy gardening.